On the night of December 16, 2019, 49-year-old road sweeper Mark Branford proposed to his 32-year-old girlfriend Kaylee Dunning. The couple had been through some extremely rough times together, with Kaylee being subjected to some horrendous online abuse that had left her dependent on antidepressants. In October of the previous year, Kaylee's phone had been stolen, a phone that had contained a number of intimate selfies of her, lewds and nudes as some might call them. On discovering them, the sick individual who stole her phone then sent these images to Kaylee's father, brother, and employer. This same person then set up a Facebook account, using some of the illicit photos of Kaylee as display and cover pictures. The whole ordeal was obviously extremely damaging to her mental health, and she increasingly sought comfort from Mark. As much as it was a horrible time for her, the trauma only strengthened their relationship, with Mark being able to prove that he could make her feel better after being subjected to such dreadful abuse. They had both tried to push back against those that were doing it, with Kaylee going to the police numerous times, while Mark also claimed to be receiving abusive messages. He even claimed to have at one point called the phone number that was connected to the Facebook account, and said he had heard scarily familiar voices on the other end. But despite their best efforts, the police simply couldn't do anything about it, and the couple were forced to basically endure the abuse together. This all led up to the night he proposed to her, or at least, this is what we're led to believe, because a night that began with him asking for her hand in marriage, ended with Kaylee being beaten to death with a crowbar. What we know for certain is that Mark Branford, the very same man with whom Kaylee sought refuge from the anonymous online abuse, was actually the very same man who was sending her the abusive messages in the first place. He was the one who had stolen Kaylee's phone, using it to set up the fake Facebook account while sending her nudes to her friends, family, and colleagues. But what's not clear is what led up to the killing, and there are only two main theories that we can fall back on to explain the sequence of events. The first theory is that the murder wasn't planned. That somehow, in the course of proposing marriage, Mark had felt so guilty that he admitted to being the one behind the abuse. Maybe he'd only done it to drive Kaylee away from her family and friends, to ensure he was the only one she could trust or the only one she loved, and in the end, he simply couldn't bear to keep the secrets going. She might have freaked out, threatened to tell everyone, threatened to have her family teach him a rather violent lesson. That might well have been the reason Mark had made the spur-of-the-moment decision to take her life. But there is a considerably more disturbing theory, one that says Mark had been planning to kill Kaylee for a long time, and has used the whole Facebook abuse thing to get the idea out there that Kaylee had stalkers, or at least people so fixated on her that her death could be blamed on them. We know from his own admissions in court that Mark was an extremely jealous man, who sought to use the fake Facebook accounts and the anonymous abuse to control Kaylee. He denies murdering her, but the more information and evidence that comes out regarding the killing, the more it's becoming clear that no one else could have possibly killed her. She was found dead in his home at Kingston Crescent, and there were no signs of any break-in to support the idea that she was killed by anyone else other than Mark. This is just another bizarre and terrifying example of how people have managed to use something like Facebook, a thing which was designed to bring human beings together and strengthen social bonds, for something unspeakably divisive and evil. Mark used Facebook to break his girlfriend down to the point she needed medication to continue her daily existence, and when she was at her lowest point, he brutally murdered her with a crowbar. It's frankly horrifying how people see the potential for death and destruction in even the most benign places. That people can be so creatively evil that they see the potential for ruination in something as seemingly normal as a social media app. I'm kinda weird about social media these days. I used to be really into Facebook when I first moved to college. It kept me in touch with my friends and family back home, and it was nice feeling like I wasn't so far away from them. Building up a collection of photos, checking into places, sharing every little detail of my life so that everyone could see how great I was doing. My entire world was online for all to see. And because I'm dumb, I was pretty liberal about my privacy setting too. So one day, I get this message request from someone I've never heard of before. It just said, "Hey." I checked their profile to see if they were in the same class as me or something, but it turned out we had no mutuals, and they lived on the other side of the country. So as you can imagine, I'm pretty confused as to why they're messaging me, but I'm also curious. So I just reply, "Hey man, do we know each other?" I don't know what I was expecting him to say when I saw that he was typing a reply. And I remember thinking that maybe he was looking for someone with the same name as me or something. But then his response pops up, and all it said was, "I'm going to kill you," with the cowboy emoji on the end. I stare at the message for a few seconds, not scared at all, just like what the hell. I mean the cowboy emoji was. I then take another look at this dude's profile, seeing a bunch more pictures of him shooting gun and wielding knives in the woods somewhere. I mean, that was at least a little intimidating, but what got me were all these rants he'd posted about how much his life sucked, how unfair things were, and how he'd love to take it out on someone who deserved it, and then the videos that were unplayable because they'd been removed by Facebook admins, but still had captions like, "That chainsaw goes through his neck like butter," crying laughing face. That's when I started to worry. It didn't seem like this guy was just having fun, playing a prank on a stranger by trying to scare them. He seemed legit crazy and seriously angry. That nutcase could have been studying every one of my statuses, picture posts and check-ins for weeks before he decided to message me. He could have screenshotted all my stuff too, so it didn't matter if I'd blocked him or not. He had my name, my school, where I hung out, the names of my friends and family, everything. I thought maybe I was just making a big deal out of nothing at the time, but later on I could barely sleep thinking about it. How horrifying a thought it was that he could have been driving across the country as I lay there in bed, having just picked a person at random to kill, and being crazy or angry enough to actually do it. You can call me paranoid all you like, but just couldn't get this guy out of my head. Like the idea of him hunting me down or whatever was unnerving enough. I mean, he had enough info on me to be able to ambush me at a dozen different places that I just couldn't avoid because they were school or grocery shopping or just my dorm room. But what had me freaked out is that creep might have been able to learn so much about me, and I was dumb or vain enough to let it happen in the first place. I knew the internet was full of crazies, I just didn't expect it to reach out and touch me in the way that it did. If I didn't make it clear already, I did actually block the guy, but some weird grim curiosity had me unblocking his account one day so I could sort of check up on him, and make sure he wasn't about to do anything too nuts. There were no rants, no threatening statuses, just a long series of photo posts that made me think he'd taken up photography or something. I'm scrolling through them when I start to get this familiar feeling from looking at the scenery. I couldn't be 100% sure, but I'd swear a lot of the pictures he'd taken were of things that were around the town I was living in. There were no street signs or anything, nothing to actually confirm he'd actually driven across the country, but if he wasn't taking pictures in a town that looked remarkably similar to mine, then I could have been in a lot of trouble. I expected that guy to jump me for weeks after, like I was a complete nervous wreck. It messed with my sleep, I lost a bunch of weight, being in an almost constant state of anxiety for the better part of a month. He didn't find me, nothing happened as a result, thank God. But just knowing he could pretty much come and get me any time he liked, got to me in ways I never even imagined it ever could. We put ourselves on Front Street in a big way with social media, and it could literally be anyone out there just lurking on our profiles. So like I said, now I'm kinda weird and cautious about social media. I don't put too much out there, I don't use my real name, I run the strictest privacy settings possible, and I really recommend you do too. I live here in a place called Mountain City, down here in Tennessee. So this is going back to about 10 years after I graduated high school, when this really messed up story started going around about one of the other kids I graduated with. It starts in the worst possible way too, because first I heard of it was a buddy of mine texting me saying, "Did you hear about Billy Payne?" I text back saying no, and he then calls me all serious sounding to say that Billy and his baby mom got shot just a few days before. Like someone rolled up to their house, bust open the door and just shot them both right there in front of the TV. They were legit executed. Some of the papers said it was a single shot to the head that killed both victims, and how Billy's throat had been slashed. We got to wondering why someone might do something like that. If it was a random psycho killer or if he was moving weight and managed to step on someone's toes. I did remember hearing about Billy messing around with drugs a few times, so it wasn't totally out of the question, But he must have done something serious to have whoever it was shoot his baby mom right there too, like that's real cold-blooded, you know? But even saying that, he just didn't seem like the kind of guy to get involved with serious gangsters. Anyway, the cops catch the two guys who committed the murder. One of them is this Vietnam vet who said in court that he was ex-CIA too. Anyway, they get charged, go up in front of a judge, and you know why they said they did it? Because the CIA had told them that the two murder victims were part of some evil group that was planning on killing their daughter. But in reality, Billy Payne and his baby mom were shot dead because they unfriended one of the killer's daughters on Facebook. Can you actually believe that? That someone would take social media that seriously and actually kill somebody because of a friend request? I mean, I didn't. I was convinced there was more to it than that. And as much as it made me feel like a gorehound, I stayed interested in the trial to find out why they'd done something too horrendous. Like the cops found Billy's kid baby alive in his mom's arms. Poor kid is gonna grow up with a mother and father. But then yeah, that's the only reason or motive established, and the prosecutor brings up Facebook messages detailing intense arguments between Billy, his girlfriend, and the girl who got unfriended. They'd argued about it back and forth with hours, with some pretty harsh language exchanged too, and then the girl says she's going to go tell her dad. I don't know if the girl just didn't expect her dad to actually go kill them, or that she knew he'd overreact, but if it's the latter then she has blood on her hands too, as far I'm concerned. Like it's the way she told her dad too. She didn't just tell him direct, she invented some fake CIA agent that got in touch with her dad over Facebook to tell them all this messed up stuff about how their daughter was in grave danger. I suppose it just scares me that people could take something like Facebook that seriously. But it's obvious that some people out there put so much belief in social media that they're willing to kill over perceived insults or whatever. That's why I keep my social media presence pretty small these days. Aside from all the ratchety drama that goes on in our timelines every so often, it's just not a healthy place for some people, and it kind of blows my mind that Facebook could be the reason that anyone got shot.